Excellent. So my name is Jorge Gimeno. As David has said, I'm a co-organizer of the San Diego Python Users Group. I've been coming here for quite some time, for a couple years now, and then some. And I think they made me an organizer in self-defense just because I kept showing up. But it has been an enjoyable experience in learning Python, and more importantly, to have somebody to bounce ideas off of when we get stuck or we get into a mental rut and can't find an answer to a problem. That's one of the things that the study group really has been an invaluable resource for me in learning Python and in taking Python knowledge to the next level. So this presentation actually came out of an actual experience at the May monthly meetup, where we were listening to Maridu give a talk on the copy module, which is in the standard library. The talk is up on YouTube. The chat is not. And that's actually where we were having a discussion as to if we could figure out how copy worked, or in one particular instance. So some things that we're going to talk about is that that example from real life, and I'll go into some detail there, and some tips and some tricks and some built-ins and oh my, and some packages here that might have some additional features to help you figure things out as to how this Python animal actually works. So the case study. During the talk of the copy module, we were wondering about this. We take a list with 3 elements, 1, 2, 3, and we take B and assign it to that same list. We were wondering if A is equal to B. We were wondering if A is B. So we could go and look through documentation or find blog posts or go to the command line. Can everyone see my terminal window?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. So a quick way to find out would be to actually use the REPL. Oops. So is A equal to B? The answer to that is true. Now, are they the same object? Now, is in Python means something different. Are they the same thing? Not do they have the same value, but are they the same thing? So the answer to that is yes. And the reason for that is in this here. The thing is, A and B in Python are not objects. A and B are names. What is the object is the list. And A and B are kind of like labels on gifts that you give. We're just saying, hey, this package we're going to call it A, but it's actually not an A, it's a list. And so when we do this assignment here, we're saying, let this be that list. And so when we ask Python, are they the same thing? The answer is true. So that wasn't really the question, but that kind of sets up the scenario for what we were going to ask, which was this. Let me go through that again. All right, so given the same list, now we're going to do a little bit of a different assignment. I'm going to take a slice of that list. Now, if you've never seen this syntax before with lists, the brackets indicate a lookup. And when you have a colon in that lookup, it gets a slice. If you don't give it any values at all, it'll take the slice from the beginning of the list to the end of the list. And now we're going to ask the same questions. Right? Do they compare as the same value, and are they the same object? So I grabbed up my interpreter, and so again, we're going to give it a fresh assignment so that we're not polluting the namespace with anything. Oops. I'm used to typing on a Mac for my day job, and I'm on a PC for this, so I'm going to typo something at some point. So do they compare as the same value? And the answer to that is yes. The way lists do comparisons is they compare each one of their elements, and if the values are the same, then it returns true. Are they the same object? And this was a surprise. A is not equal to B. And so that gave us a little bit of a starting point to figure out why that was. We did figure out why that was, and that was because in the documentation, it says that it does something different. If iterable, in other words, what we're passing in is already a list, which a slice object is a list. It just is a list with a limited amount of elements. A copy is made and returned. Now, I could have spent hours looking for that in the documentation, and I don't like reading documentation as much as anybody else does. But this was much faster for me to get an answer that I was wanting. So there is the value in using the command line in finding out answers to some questions. So what are some tips? Use the built-in callables. When you type up Python and get a REPL, there's a ton of things that are available to you. In the documentation, they're called built-in functions. And as Trey Hunter, who's also in the audience somewhere, has said, that's actually a misnomer. They're actually callables. Many of these are actually classes that you can call, but at the end of the day, they do the same job. To the user, that's transparent. But there's a ton of things that you can do from the command line that doesn't require you writing a script. So some that I found useful, the dir callable, the dir function. If you give it an object, and I'll give you an example here. If I give it a dict, just the dict module, it'll give me a list of all the attributes. In other words, the methods and the variables that are in the class. And this is actually sometimes easier than typing help, because help gets you really a minor wall of text. And this is cool when you don't have access to documentation on some machines. But I've just found that usually dir gets me what I need. Some others, vars. This is cool when you have objects that you don't have control over, that don't necessarily have awesome string and wrapper methods that tell you what their values are. You can give an object like that to vars. So an example of that would be as if I do create a dictionary. And then I pass that to vars. It doesn't have a, never mind, I can't do that. I have to do that with I picked a poor example. I have to pick that with something that has a dictionary attribute. Dictionaries don't, for optimization reasons. So I need to find something that has slots. But if you do have a custom object, then you can pass that to vars. Type will tell you what type something is. Now for built-ins, that's usually not too useful because we all know that a dictionary is a dictionary, but sometimes you get some object name and you need to figure out what kind of class it is or where the class is defined. That can help you with that. And then lastly is instance. This will help you sometimes define custom classes that define a certain interface. So is it for example, a mapping, which is what a dictionary is? Is it a sequence, which is what lists and strings are? Is instance can help you with those. So we've talked about the REPL sometimes, but in the work that I do, it's rare that I work with stuff strictly from the command line. I'm usually just bugging a script. And the testing framework that we use is somewhere on the order of thousands of lines of code. And I have stuff defined everywhere. So I need a breakpoint. And what a breakpoint will do is it'll drop you in something like the wrapper called a debugger. And we'll talk more about that in a few minutes. But if you need access to variables in a script that you created and you need to get to that local namespace, then a breakpoint is helpful. So know your tools. I think that there's a tongue-in-cheek joke that if you want to see a flame war, just tell people that your IDE is the best. But IDEs and editors in general do have tools that will make this kind of thing easier. So know what they are and use them. So packages with goodies. IPDB, Improved Python Debugger, has a lot of nice extra features. I could go into detail on this, but that is in itself a 50-minute talk, and nobody wants to hear me talk that long tonight. But check it out. It's got some really useful things. Another thing that's useful for debugging when you need to remember state is Jupyter Notebooks. And the other cool thing about Jupyter Notebooks is that you can save them and you can share them. So if you need to provide somebody with a proof of concept, then this is a very useful tool to use. ZSH, Z-Shell. For those of us, I don't know if this is available for Windows, but for those of us on Macs and Linux machines, Z-Shell does have some things that are helpful when you're doing some debugging. They offer auto-completion. I use OhmyZSH, which is a flavor of Z-Shell, and comes with nice plugins that you can use to debug from the command line. And there are others, but I will leave that to people to ask or say in the period after that. So really brief, that's my dog, sorry. That's all I have. I'll take questions at this time.